Welcome to Vanguard, a podcast of radical traditionalism. Here's your host, Richard Spencer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Vanguard. Well, it's a great pleasure to have on the program today Andy Nowicki and Colin Liddell. Andy is joining us from his home in Georgia, and Colin has actually traveled back to his homeland of Scotland for the summer, and we're glad we were able to reach him. So how are you doing, Colin?
Yeah, fine. I'm probably more relaxed than normal.
When you get home, you feel at home?
Yeah, I do feel at home, yeah, definitely. It's just quite a few other people also feel at home here in Britain nowadays, who, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I think I do.
So, yeah, it's definitely, the multicultural society is definitely working out well and seems to be progressing.
Where in Scotland are you right now?
Ayrshire. It's a relatively remote part of the United Kingdom, very far from London, and mainly rural with a few small towns and golf courses. But even this part of Britain is becoming inexorably enriched. Wow.
I guess it's a small island. It's happening fast. I remember seeing pictures of Dublin, and I was shocked at the kind of diversity and vibrancy that they had instilled in that city so quickly.
Well, that's one of the things about living in Japan and coming back to Scotland every year or few months. You notice these incremental changes more clearly.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was just I had lunch with two friends of mine, and there was a little craft fair out here in Whitefish, Montana. And so there are a lot of people were out in the streets, looking at paintings and, carved antlers and all this kind of stuff that people like out here. And I was reminded of this joke that someone told me that last year or something, PBS did a special on my hometown here of Whitefish. And, it was a kind of Discover America special or something. And they sent this mulatress, kind of Obama-like person out, and she was a very sassy woman from New York or something, and she went to this craft fair that I just walked through, and she was interviewing someone whom I know, and he reported back that when she was at the craft fair, she said something to the effect of, "Ooh, I didn't know that white fish was white fish," or something like that. White fish.
Read the label.
But North America is so large. We have not been enriched out here yet. It's a large continent. It hasn't come here yet. You basically only see Northern Europeans actually around here.
Here in Savannah, Georgia, there's plenty of diversity, but it's been that way for quite a while. for a century or two. So it's nothing new in these parts, at least as far as
So it's pretty stable diversity, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly, we're to blame for bringing that enrichment to our shores as well. But anyway, we should drop all these euphemisms. This is we're speaking to you today on Saturday, and what is today, the 11th? Yes, of August, and there's a lot of news. We wanted to talk about the Olympics, and we should also talk about the recent shooting at a Sikh Temple. We should say a few things about that, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the news that just occurred this morning. Well, I guess there were some rumors about it yesterday, and that is that is that Mitt Romney has unveiled his vice presidential running mate, and that is Paul Ryan, who's a congressman from Wisconsin.
Yay!
Yes, and I think we're a step closer to taking back America. Okay, well, I guess we don't have to have this podcast actually, because all our problems have been solved. There's nothing to talk about. Just go and vote.
Nothing more to be said. Yeah.
No, but I don't really like any of these politicians, so I think people can imagine what I think of them. But I have to say, I find this pick very, very odd, and I go back and forth wondering whether the GOP is the stupid party or the evil party. And that is the evil party in the sense that they actually exploit the hopes and dreams of white people, and the stupid party in the sense that they believe their own stupid bullshit. And with this Paul Ryan thing, I really think they are a stupid party. And, Sarah Palin probably made sense in some horrible way that, we have a dumbed-down country and she's, like the MILF candidate, and she, pushes people's buttons in terms of some important issues, and she was a kind of, it was a kind of off the wall choice, but yeah, but a kind of celebrity choice as well. And so I can, in a way, understand that. That was a telegenic choice. But this Paul Ryan thing, it just doesn't make any sense. He's, from our standpoint, he's really not good on our issues. I think he didn't vote for the DREAM Act, which is a bad immigration act, but he's very pro-immigration. He's not good on these issues. The only thing he's known for, and he's, talked about as being an intellectual of the GOP. Intellectual of the GOP is like, military intelligence or some of those other oxymorons, but anyway,
a very high standard.
Right. But he's thought as intellectual because he wants to do all these things that I think are going to be very unpopular. I mean, he's associated with wanting to bring voucher programs to Medicare and cutting the budget. So, long story short, and again, look. This is
alienating old people.
Yeah, this is a mass democracy. It functions on perceptions, not reality. The perception of him, which is probably close to reality, is that he wants to cut spending. So either he is going to put people to sleep. All the soccer moms in Peoria don't want to hear about budgets. Like that's the last thing they want to hear about. Or he's going to frighten them because they're going to be like, well, shit, he's going to take away my Social Security benefits. I'm going to go vote for the liberals. I mean, so I just think I just think they just don't want to win or something. I don't know. It strikes me as just a stupid choice. What do you guys think?
Why do you think they don't want to win? Were you serious?
Well,
saying that seriously, or
maybe I should rephrase that and say they don't really have the will to win. That they would rather be safe, or they don't want to offend things. And you can see this with Romney, because politicians they obviously like to make promises and never fulfill them. But Romney has had all these opportunities to really get tough and maybe even rough when it comes to some issues that appeal to white people, i.e. the people who are going to vote for him. And, there was this thing where Obama basically said that through executive order, he was going to do a kind of de facto amnesty. He was going to stop deporting it. There was this controversy erupted. And Romney this was just like they just pitched the softball towards him, and he could have just hit it out of the park. But he didn't even say that, that's unconstitutional. He didn't even go down that road. He said this is going to prevent a long-term solution. So, I mean, it was like they tossed a softball to him and he whiffed. I mean, he could have...
He kept the bat on his shoulder.
Yeah, he could have, or kept the bat on his shoulder is better. Yeah, he could have been really tough on immigration, really fired up everyone, and then he didn't even have to do anything, because, politicians don't ever do anything good. Mm-hmm. But he could have at least just talked about it, but he was afraid to do that. And so, I just think, I don't know, I find it rather shocking that they're not willing to get tough and win an election. It's like they would rather lose than be called mean or racist or something.
Or clever.
Yeah,
Richard, I'd be interested to know what choice could Romney have made that would have impressed you? Can you think of anybody? No, I mean it's not a rhetorical question. I'm actually interested to know. Like, if he had made this particular choice, then maybe you could have said, well, I still don't like him, and of course it's still just a just a waste of time, this whole democracy thing. And I would agree with you on that. But is there, did you have hope that maybe he was going to go with somebody who would be interesting, or, I'm just do you have anybody in mind, or? Oh,
I don't know. I mean, maybe it would have been kind of funny if he had done another telegenic choice like Sarah Palin, and she's available.
Like Bill Buckman or somebody like that.
Yeah, like do something where it's all about televisuals. That would have been.
Or Herman Cain.
Oh dear. That would have.
To go that route. They haven't really done that, or Condi.
Yeah, in a way, I am so cynical. I just kind of want to be entertained. Like, if they had done Herman Cain, that would have at least been entertaining. I remember him, talking about, like, when I was at Howard, I learned in the physics department that a bumblebee cannot fly, physically speaking. But a bumblebee believes that it can fly. And we in this country need to believe in the American dream. Kind of, I'm like, that's like a direct quote. That was one of his stump speech. But anyway,
So American politics is just about to get even more boring.
Right. I mean, at least Herman Cain would have been kind of funny. I mean, I don't even hate Herman Cain.
Your objection is mostly the boredom factor of it.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of funny, but
right.
Paul Ryan's just kind of a nerd or something, I mean, look at him. I mean, he doesn't have his big issue is like, I'm going to, go in and cut spending and balance the budget. I mean, again, look, I get it. I mean, America's a financial wreck. I mean, that's for sure. But I mean, it's not really sexy.
Do you think the reasoning might have been that were they looking for the anti-Palin? I mean, because
that might be
what happened with Sarah Palin was, of course, at first it made a big splash and a lot of people liked it. But then when it became clear that there wasn't much substance there, that she was just a good-looking woman.
Well,
really didn't know very much about
really
anything.
Buy that narrative.
Then it backfired on them, and so maybe this time they were going for somebody who's not flashy, but who, I don't know, has this reputation for being smart and having some.
I think maybe they just want to completely de-energize the electoral process, because if it becomes energized, then it becomes polarized, and then that becomes a problem. And so they just want to keep everything. But it sounds like, I'm just guessing here, but it sounds like they want to just keep everything low-key, and the more low-key it is, the less polarized it gets, so the less volatile it gets, so and then they figure that they can just sort of sneak in on apathy.
That is, Colin, I think you've just put forth the most plausible explanation that I've heard.
I don't even know anything about this guy or what's going on in America.
You don't even live here.
Well, you just have to look at him. He's boring. I mean, that kind of makes sense, actually, that, Sarah Palin, look, I don't think McCain could have ever won. I mean, he's a terrible candidate and a terrible person, but I don't think he could have ever won the 2008 election. I mean, for a lot of reasons. So I don't believe that Sarah Palin really hurt him. I mean, you can look at different polls, but I'm just kind of, going.
I mean, America's inherently a very fractious society.
Yeah.
So if you have an energized debate, inevitably that creates all sorts of tensions and problems, and especially for somebody like Romney, he doesn't want that kind of trouble, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I was just saying before, I believe that Sarah Palin probably did help the GOP. I think McCain was a dead on arrival to begin with. But I think you're actually on to something in the sense that Sarah Palin has been kind of like catnip in reverse for the left. She motivates them. She and George Bush are kind of like the evil of the evilest. And so maybe they were this cynical. They were like, this is our strategy, folks. Americans need to be really bored. They need to forget that the election's even happening. And all the kind of buttoned up, suburban dwelling, middle-class Republicans will go vote, and they'll vote for Romney and Ryan, and everyone else will be just too bored. They'll be watching the the football game or whatever, so they'll forget about it, and then they'll wake up the next morning and they'll be like, "What happened?" The Republicans just.
Yeah, that's the only thing that makes sense.
That maybe
apart from the theory that Romney has an IQ of about 70.
Well, I think that might be what they were doing, because I agree. He probably does. Ryan won't motivate the left in the way that Sarah Palin does. But I would say this though. I do believe this, and I'll just make a little prediction here that Ryan is going to actually. I think he's going to scare some people with budget cutting because. Americans.
Old people vote like crazy.
People vote like crazy, and there's just going to be this stink in the air about he wants to cut Medicare, and I in a way I don't blame the
maybe that's actually reassuring because that's going to bring a tone of budget cutting into the campaign, but it's going to be a very subdued tone because basically he's a very boring candidate and he's not the main guy anyway.
Yeah. And
so that's just going to be a reassuring thing in the background rather than actually directly threatening people. It'll just create an ambience that the Republicans are actually going to be quite a safe pair of hands with balancing the books, even though they won't be, obviously.
Right.
It's all kind of amazing in a way because Obama is very far from being, a popular president.
Right.
And you'd think you'd be easily defeatable, if that's a word. Easy to beat, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Well, no, and with the Electoral Congress, it's a weird thing. It's not just a popular vote. A lot of these states really matter, and I can't claim to be any expert on like these people who have all these charts and maps and things like that. But at least what I've gleaned from these guys is that Obama really is in a good position when it comes to the electoral map. And remember this, just to go back to the whole Medicare thing. Florida is a big state that's in play, and it often it has a lot of Republican voters there, but then it has a lot of old people. And again, I really think this is going to be the liberal strategy. They're just going to be like, this guy's some Ayn Randian libertarian extremist. If you don't have retirement funds, he wants you to die. Kind of thing. He's going to start pulling plugs on grannies and. They're just going to say all this stuff. And so I think he might lose Florida for the GOP. Again, I'm of course no electoral expert, but I'm just going by my gut feeling. And there's certainly a lot of retirees in Florida who are going to be freaked out by any talk about Medicare or Social Security. So anyway.
And old people vote much more than young people do.
Oh, yeah.
Way more.
Oh, yeah, it's a big part of their life. And they probably, in a way, get direct benefits from it, in a way.
It's how they party, by voting.
Right, yeah. So anyway, it strikes me as a really bad choice, and I do think Romney is going to lose. But even though I really don't hate the man, but he really... It's not there. Well, anyway, do we want to leave this topic for mass murder of Sikh immigrants, or should we say some more about?
You should really take charge like the McLaughlin group and say,
"Wrong.
You too."
I'll start doing that.
Or Sikh Temple shooting.
Sikh Temple shooting. Well, I have to say, maybe I shouldn't have just made light of this Sikh Temple shooting, because it's obviously a terrible thing. And I remember, Andy, when we were talking on our last podcast, we revisited Batman, and you said that you joked. You said, "Oh, I went to go see it again, and I didn't get shot." Ha ha ha! And I was like, "Oh yeah, this mass murder is going around." But in a way, we shouldn't have been joking, because. There seems to be at least some kind of trend. With this murder. I'm sure all of our listeners have heard about it, but essentially a man who's now been identified as a white supremacist and a former army operative, and he was in a white power band of some sort, went and shot a number of people at a Sikh temple. Sikhs are, of course, Indian, South Asian immigrants who are not Hindus. Anyway,
but they're not Muslims.
They're not Muslims either, although they're often misidentified as such because of their head garb. But before we go into more things about this, let me just ask you this question. I mean, do you think the American public is losing it? I mean, is this going to be is this a new trend? Mass murder, random mass murder, or some people, we have a tendency to look and, read too much into things. You see a salacious news story and you say, oh, this is the new trend, this is happening. But is it happening? I mean, is it a combination of economic forces and despair and maybe anxieties about mass immigration? Are these all coming together where we're going to have a lot of Breivik types in our hands? Or what do you think, Andy?
I remember reading something, I think it was on a Talkie Mag by Guy Somerset, which I really wasn't all that on board with. I don't know if you saw this article, where he was basically saying something like James Holmes did what he did because he's an alienated white male in a multicultural, hell. Which I don't think there's any evidence as far as motive in his case for why he did what he did.
I don't believe that either.
So I thought that was really kind of jumping the gun. But I as far as whether this is going to become more of a trend, is there hard evidence that it's happening more now than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago? I mean, yes, there have been these couple of, two things that have happened in rapid succession. The Sikh Temple shooting, coming quickly after the Batman movie theater shooting, and then early last year was the thing in Arizona. But I don't know. It's hard for me to generalize. I would want to look at. I mean, like you say.
Yes, each mass murder is special.
It's true. Well, what is the first line of Anna Karenina?
Yes, let's not generalize. They're all unique individuals, and
all happy people. All happy people are the same. All mass murderers are crazy in their own way. I mean, that's probably true. But don't you think that there's? I mean, it's not. I don't think it's overgeneralizing to say that if there's certain economic despair and other things in society, that you'll have a greater quantity of people will kind of go over the edge. I mean, I don't.
Well, I think this is an issue about sort of gender issues and opportunities for men, and as well, because I think I've noticed a kind of related and in many ways parallel trend in the UK, but the outcome is much more positive because, like in America, young men are feeling marginalized more and more, and so they're sort of falling into a world of virtual reality and fantasy and extremism and reactionary violence and so on. And in the case of Britain, the effect is to push a lot of young men into sport, and this has created our very impressive medal tally at the London Olympics. Which it sounds crazy when you just broach it like that, but there's actually some rational basis for this.
Well, I thought you were going to say that people were going into soccer hooliganism or something, or.
Oh no! There's just spending early mornings and late evenings training on the lake.
Oh, okay, well.
Because the idea is that people are wondering about why sort of switching from the Sikh Temple to the Olympics now, right? So people are sort of wondering why Britain has been so successful, because we're above Russia in the medals table, we're not very far behind China and America, and it is quite phenomenal because back in 1996 Britain won, I think, one gold medal. And so since then, we've had a bit of an upsurge, and especially this Olympics and the last Olympics, we got 19 gold medals. This Olympics, I think we're up to 27 now.
Wow.
And a couple more chances of increasing on that. And, why is this happening? And one reason, of course, is they started to increase some sort of funding for various sports through the lottery, which was introduced about, I think, 10 or 15 years ago. And a lot of the money from the lottery goes into, financing various training initiatives. But also, I think, my perception as a British person who's been forced to, move overseas to work. There's for talented young males in Britain, there's a lot less opportunity.
Oh yeah. And
so that would actually push a lot of people into sports, which is usually been the outlet in certain societies for people who can't succeed in any other way. I'm talking about the kind of sports caste system, which is very entrenched in America.
Yeah.
And so you have this funny thing where young, talented, lively British males think, I'm not going to get a very good job anyway if I take that course and do all those, various tests and exams and go to that university or whatever. And so they think maybe I should concentrate on this sport, which I seem to be quite good at instead, even though, ultimately, for most people, sport is basically a kind of hopeless endeavor because only a tiny minority can actually succeed. So most intelligent people don't think about becoming a sportsman seriously because they obviously do the maths and they realize it's a very loaded bet. So, but if you have no other real alternative or no other real opportunities, then you might think, why not? What else am I going to do? I'm not going to get a very good job in this kind of economy, or it's with this amount of political correctness going on. I'm not going to get preferences or favors. So I think that's one of the things I've noticed about the British Olympics here.
Well, it is interesting. I remember traveling through London, Heathrow or one of the other ones, not too long ago, and I had this long layover, so I was hanging out in this international area, where they have tons of magazine shops and such things. And I remember seeing that all of the clerks were South Asian women of some level. And then you had some British women. And then I remember seeing one true salt-of-the-earth Englishman working as a clerk at this. But, he was outnumbered, at least 20-1 by Asian women, brown, South Asian women. And I was kind of thinking, I noticed that, and I was thinking to myself, where are all the men? I mean, what are they doing? Where are all the blue-collar Cockney types? What shouldn't they be working
class,
here?
Yeah.
But I was kind of thinking, what are they doing? I mean, what are they doing? Are they sitting at home collecting checks from the government and watching the football match?
Lots of them are,
getting in
definitely.
fights?
Yeah, and some others will be in the army, and
oh right.
Yeah, but the thing with the British Airways is the British Airports Authority, which is now owned by a Spanish company. That's a special case because it used to be part of the nationalised British Airways, and they did bring in back in the boom days of the 1950s and 60s and even the 1970s to a certain extent. When the multicultural society was first developing in Britain, they brought a lot of people from overseas to work in very specific areas. So I think the London Transport, they brought in a lot of people from the West Indies to work as bus conductors and sometimes bus drivers. And I think in a similar way, the British Airport Authority, they brought in a lot of people from India to work at the airports. And so that's a kind of legacy of the days of nationalisation and also a kind of labour-starved boom economy of the 1960s.
Interesting. Well, let's before we leave the Sikh Temple to talk about the Olympics, let me just say one thing, and I think I wrote a very quick blog about this. If we take the narrative that the person who committed this act, what was his name again? I'm forgetting.
Don't remember.
Yeah, I'm forgetting his name. I can go look it up. But anyway, that he was a white supremacist at some level, and there's obviously, this is not just some insinuation by a journalist. He clearly was in a white power band. You have pictures of him in front of a swastika. I mean, I think that is clearly there. Whether that motivated him is another question. But my view of all of this was that isn't this extremely odd that he attacked a Sikh temple? And, a lot of people have mentioned this, that some people can confuse...
So you're saying he should have attacked a British airport instead?
You're terrible.
Just to tie the two together. Yeah.
No, we don't condone violence on this program. It's a family program. But it's in the Milwaukee area, and downtown Milwaukee is I was looking it up. It's almost 50% black or something like this. So it seems like if there was going to be racially motivated violence, it would have taken there. This Sikh temple was in essentially a white flight area where it was like 95% white. Doesn't seem like there's a lot of racial resentment. I mean, maybe he confused them with Muslims, and he was a kind of a neocon patriot of some sort, but it seems like if you're going to engage in premeditated mass murder, that you would at least check out Wikipedia and discover that these Sikhs are just simply not Muslims. They probably hate Muslims. So
they definitely do. Yeah.
Yeah. If I were a white supremacist who wanted to kill people, like I thought, hey, let's get this over with now, race war is on, why would you go after a Sikh temple? It just strikes me as so odd.
It's strange.
It makes it almost unbelievable that either, again, just because we're, our views are associated with white nationalism or nationalism in general, I'm not trying to excuse anyone. I mean, if he, I'm just trying to get at the truth. It just strikes me as very odd. It's a
strange choice to target. Like you said, if unless he's just ignorant about the differences between Sikhs and Muslims, but we were talking before about how he supposedly worked in the psych ops when he was in the army, and of course what you're getting at in a roundabout way, Richard, it sounds like, is you're wondering if there's something, if there's more to the story, if this is like a case of, or you're not saying that it is, but you're wondering if this might be an MK Ultra kind of Manchurian candidate sort of thing.
Well, the thought has crossed my mind. I will admit that. It just strikes me as quite odd, and I was just wondering if, the Batman murder, could have been used to gin up a gun control legislation or something, but it didn't work, and then they wanted this one to be kind of perfect. So it was, this guy's clearly a white supremacist, and he bought the guns legally, and he's going after minorities. So it's, he's not going after blacks or Muslims. It makes it a little more abstract or something. I mean, again, this is all pure speculation. I will admit, I just simply do not have evidence for this. It's just the whole thing strikes me as so odd that I just think questions should be asked. It's on this topic. I recently saw a video. I believe Lou Rockwell actually posted it, and I think I tweeted it as well. But there's a person talking about the Batman shooting. This guy was a young man who was unemployed former graduate student. And yet he spent thousands upon thousands of dollars. I mean, he might have needed to spend 10 grand or so on securing all of these weapons. And there are a lot of other, eyewitness accounts aren't always reliable. We should remember that, because the mind can remember things in a very a strange way. So we should always be skeptical of eyewitness accounts. But at the same time, there simply have been eyewitness accounts of more than one shooter in both of these cases. There are eyewitness accounts that there's a team of 10 people in the Sikh Temple, that there was another man throwing gas canisters in the movie theater. So again, I just you should take all of this stuff with a big heaping of salt, but I have to admit that this all strikes me as quite fishy. It reminds me of the Osama bin Laden murder. Immediately when it happened, there are all of these strange things about it that just struck me as this is really fishy. I mean, Colin, you wrote an excellent piece on that.
Yeah, I just didn't. It just felt odd to me. The details just didn't hang together. It was like if you're reading a novel or watching a film and it just doesn't fit together properly. It was that sort of feeling.
Yeah.
And so I guess this Sikh Temple thing has the same kind of atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's always. But
go ahead.
Like you were saying before, Richard, there are always, there's buzzing about, different gunmen or the, scenario unfolding in a different way, or some eyewitness says he sees something or other. I'm remembering, having studied Columbine, there's a video out there called the Columbine Cause, if you're interested, if anyone is interested, which alleges that there were, that it was a massive plot by the government, and that there were, like a dozen shooters, and not just these two boys, not just Klebold and Harris, that they were the patsies and all this kind of stuff. But it is based on, people saying that they recognize this shooter or that shooter as being a different person, who wasn't either of the two, who was eventually, thought to be the only ones who partook in the shooting. So, I mean, I guess I'm just throwing that in to for some context or perspective. It seems like there's weird stories surrounding every case like this. And I don't know whether maybe there's legit weird things that we don't know, or that's being kept from us. But it's not really. To me, it doesn't seem like it's anything new. This talk about.
Conspiracy theories. They create conspiracy theories, so to get people thinking about rather unimportant things and to distract people from other issues. Because once you start getting into the endless detail and the endless possibilities and what one person said and what might have been, it's just endless, isn't it? So, and where does it actually take you?
It sounds like a conspiracy theory about conspiracy theories. That's very meta.
Yeah.
I think that is true. I've always thought that I think some of these conspiracy theories, particularly the ones about, the Queen of England being the seat of all, global tyranny or something. That's always struck me as so profoundly ridiculous. And you see a lot of the American John Bircher types, kind of buying this. It does strike me as a conspiracy theory of like, let's give these boobs some total nonsense to write books about, and they'll, we can do all these terrible things to their country while they're
if you get everybody playing computer games and discussing conspiracy theories, you can keep running the world, can't you? So there's another conspiracy theory if anybody's interested, and I'm sure they are.
Yeah, or the alien, lizards are running the world. They're just all these kinds of things that strike me like that. I think even the Barack Obama's birthplace. I mean, this is just kind of. Would this change anything if he were born somewhere? I mean, it's just anyway. I just it is a question, but I'm just admitting my own skepticism when it comes to a lot of these stories. Going back to the Bin Laden, just the timing of the Bin Laden story was it was at a nadir of Obama's popularity. It was at the zenith of the whole birther movement. Trump was kind of mainstreaming the birther movement, and I think that was a kind of scary thing for them, and it just happened to all at once. Again,
didn't all of the armed forces personnel who were involved in the raid supposedly die afterwards? Like, didn't they die in a crash or something? Or am I
happened
just
to there were what you're saying. We'll have to go look this up, but I have heard things like that there were a lot of deaths surrounding this, but so I don't have the facts here at my fingertips. I don't want to go too much further into that, but yeah. Anyway, it's just, again, I think that the whole Sikh, to go back to the Sikh murder, just to tie a bow around it. I don't know what to say. I don't think you can draw any lessons. I mean, again, I think people who want to bring gun control out of this is truly crazy. You're going to disarm people because there was some loon who murdered. I mean, it's just a non sequitur and a terrible thing. But
how did they stop the guy at the Sikh Temple, if they did, or what was
he was actually he was shooting at a policeman, and then I believe he shot a policeman a number of times, but he was taken down, wasn't he? He did not kill himself.
Oh, I heard that the police
shot him.
That's what I heard. Yes. Is that wrong?
If it might have been a death by cop kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I guess the takeaway here is that his motivations and his choice of venues just strikes me as exceedingly odd, and therefore I wonder if there's something more to it. But of course, it might be simply a situation where this guy is an exceedingly odd guy, and he makes odd choices like this. So anyway.
It could have just been that was the nearest obvious, ethnic landmark when he finally flipped, and so he just went there for convenience sake.
Yes,
could be something as basic as that.
Yeah, it certainly could be. Anyway, next issue, the politically correct Olympics. It's funny. I remember at the very end of the last Olympics, there was the closing ceremony, and I admit I kind of liked the Chinese opening and closing ceremonies, even though they were fairly gaudy, because they were very nationalistic, and images of China ruling the waves, and millennia of Chinese history. It was
unapologetic.
Yes, very nationalist, and then I remember. After it was this nationalist spectacle, then it was like, okay, now it's time for the British Olympics. And, it's like, bring out people who are handicapped and various Muslims and gays. And let's all, and then here's a telephone booth. Oh, look, we're in London. Oh, it was just truly pathetic. I mean, it was just like, it really was. They had someone, I remember.
Wonderful British sense of comedy there, yeah.
People in wheelchairs, black women with afros playing the drums, and all these people getting on a double-decker bus. I was just like, this is the most pathetic thing I've ever seen in my life. At one point, this people conquered the globe, and then now they're a bunch of little
losers,
twits, and various multicultural people who are handicapped. I mean, anyway, but they didn't disappoint. They really went whole hog with Cool Britannia Olympics, and I don't know if you guys saw the opening ceremony, but I saw some highlights of it.
About evil. Wasn't there a lot of Marxist stuff about evil factory owners and the Industrial Revolution and
yeah, there was a kind of maybe even like a romantic.
Yeah, well, it started off as a kind of medieval, idyllic medieval landscape with the peasants and playing cricket and a sort of facsimile of Glastonbury Tor. And then this is all stripped away by the Industrial Revolution. These huge phallic chimneys sort of soared into the heavens. And all these top-hatted capitalists started pacing around. And then you had all these workers banging hammers and creating these giant Olympic rings. And then this gave way to a wonderful kind of healing vision of a kind of multicultural Britain.
Mm-hmm.
It's a kind of romantic Marxism. It reminds me of Patrice Chéreau's version of the Ring of the Nibelungen, which he did in Bayreuth in 1976. I don't know if anyone's seen that on video, but it's a kind of romantic Marxism. It almost glorifies the pre-industrial revolution days as idyllic and wonderful and kinds of things. But yeah, that was kind of funny. I think they actually had they actually had the National Health Service was
very prominently featured. Yeah,
I guess this is kind of, industrialization has been redeemed or something like this.
Well, it's sort of like after the scar and trauma of industrialization, you need the National Health Service to sort of heal the nation, because psychically we've all become sick through capitalism and industrialization and conquering the world and enslaving the third world and so on. And also the National Health Service, again, like when I mentioned before how Britain imported a lot of ethnic workers in from the 1950s and 1960s when there were labor shortages, and of course a lot of black people went to work in the National Health Service, and lots of Indian doctors also came in. So the National Health Service has always been considered a very kind of multi-ethnic workplace, and so you sort of tie together in the British public consciousness, the National Health Service is a very positive thing, and so you tie that together with the ethnic identity of the National Health Service. So you're saying that multiculturalism is a way of healing a scarred country.
I think that was the narrative.
The narrative they're trying to construct, anyway.
Andy?
I was just saying, it brings to my eyes this whole, just the way the Colin
it brought tears to my eyes, too, for all the wrong reasons.
I'll just mention this. This is a little bit silly. I actually just watched highlights, so I read about this, but they had one section where they actually had Tim Berners-Lee, who was who more or less invented the World Wide Web and that protocol, and they had him sitting there with the Next Cube, which is the Steve Jobs's the computer he manufactured after he was kicked out of Apple, and he actually used that as the world's first server, which is kind of interesting when he was at CERN in Switzerland. But what I heard is that he was out on stage with his Next Cube, and it's kind of cute, and certainly the World Wide Web is revolutionary as the world, so it's right for British people to be proud that one of their own developed that protocol. And the Good Morning America host, Meredith Vieira, and that other guy, I'm forgetting his name, that guy with the shaved, almost quasi-shaved head, who's been on Good Morning America for years now. Matt Lauer, exactly. They were on there, and supposedly they said, "Oh, there's Tim Berners-Lee." Like someone handed them a card. They're like, who's that guy? What's he doing up there?" It's just kind of like deeply insulting. And also it's like, can't you morons, like, I don't know, go look at Wikipedia or look at your cell phone? Like, doesn't someone prepare these people for, they were almost like reveling.
There's too much information for them to take in, obviously.
Yeah, but they were kind of reveling in their ignorance or something. While you had someone who, that Tim Berners-Lee, probably like the greatest part of that ceremony. He actually, developed something that has been world changing. But anyway, that was just a minor thing. The other thing that's happened in this Olympics, and I don't remember this ever happening before, but certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but we've had multiple episodes, one after another, of people being expelled or punished in some way due to being politically incorrect. And you have a couple of different things. One was a soccer player from Switzerland, I believe that's where he's from. Anyway, yeah. he granted, he might be the case that's least defensible, because he said some nasty things about Koreans, on his Twitter page or something, and maybe that's a borderline case on sportsmanship or something. But there was another Greek track and field athlete, actually a very beautiful woman who's blonde, athlete.
Oh,
yeah. She made a joke on her Twitter page that really had nothing to do with the Olympics, and it was essentially that there's so many African immigrants in Greece that and the West Nile virus is there. I guess the flies are enjoying their native food or something. Okay, yes, a little bit crude or something. But, I mean, it has nothing to do with the Olympics. It was a joke. I've told a lot of silly jokes on my Twitter page. I mean, everyone has. I mean, it's just this girl was expelled to her. Some of these athletes, they don't get many chances at the Olympics. They might just get one or two at the most. And
give her a fine or something,
I can't believe
crush her whole career.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable that they did that. And then there's another German rower who was essentially dating a man who may or may not be a German nationalist. He was associated with the Nationaldemokraten Party. I've always heard the joke that the National Democraten Party will hold meetings, and there'll be like 10 people there, and 9 of whom are federal agents, but kind of like the Ku Klux Klan or something in America. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway, so her boyfriend was associated with this party, which is a legal party.
Who's she dating? I mean, who was that anybody's business?
But also it's a legal political party.
Yeah, and the NDP, they're very, very careful about what they say because they have to be.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not like they've actually ever, said anything that would get you arrested in any other country.
Right. I mean, maybe they are nationalists, or maybe they all, at night they think about Hitler or something. But it's legal political party. She dated someone, so we're getting at one degree of association. A degree of separation. I just kind of find it amazing. I mean, it's almost going to, the logical outcome of this is 2 degrees of separation. I actually remember in Derek Turner's book, Sea Changes, which is a novel which I just recently published. I certainly hope everyone goes out and reads it. But he actually has a situation where the equivalent to the SPLC in this fictional England that he writes about, they bring up information on someone they want to destroy, that his aunt attended rallies with the British Union of Fascists, like the Mosley Group. So it's like your aunt might have been racist. But that's not really it's not satire. It's reality.
Not implausible. And there was also the case of the Ukrainian fans, I think it was, who during a basketball game were making this gesture that looked like a Zeke Heil gesture. Did you hear about this?
I missed
it. They said something that supposedly made it sound like they were mocking the referee, who might have been black. That they made a sound that sounded like a gorilla or something like that. And then they did this double fist, what looks like a double fist salute. That looks like the the Nazi salute, but then they said
the Roman salute,
yeah, the Roman, exactly.
Yes, well, they invented it, so I think we should give them some credit. Also, I heard one story. The British police arrested somebody for frowning.
Frowning.
Yes, this is like somebody was standing along the route of the road race, which is the bicycle race, and he had a threatening demeanor and he was frowning, they said, and so they arrested him, and he hadn't actually done anything. He just wasn't smiling like everybody else, so they thought something wrong here.
He was going to pull out a gun or something.
This is like North Korea almost. It's the same degree.
Well, I think the way I would think about this is that there's some aspects in life where you have real intense expressions of the zeitgeist or government power, and in the United States and the rest of the world, I think about this in the airport a lot of ways. Like the airport it's a temporary experience. It's obviously transitory experience. But it kind of expresses what our welfare state really wants to do to you. They want to line you up, search you,
sodomize you.
Yes, sodomize you, literally in rare cases. I mean, but that's what they want to do to you. They want to look at everything. They want to open your bag and go through it. I mean, even if you just have your underwear, I don't want someone looking at my underwear. I mean, it's just, they just want to invade your life, waste your time massively, and just and look at and manage you. And I think in some ways that's a kind of intense expression about what the government ultimately thinks about its population. Yeah. And in some ways the Olympics are kind of like that as well, because it's a temporary event. Everyone is on edge for a number of different reasons. All the world's eyes are on one city, and it kind of like it brings to the fore what our leaders ultimately want to do. I don't think we're really exaggerating. I think at some point what you see in the Olympics will become taken for granted everyday life, where it's people will be arrested for twittering some off-color joke about blacks, or they'll look at who your aunt once dated and determine if you should be fired from your job. I mean, it's just
or for having an undesirable boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's true. Maybe the reason why we see more of it in the London Olympics than in the Beijing Olympics is because it's in the heart of the West this time around, and the West is where this corrosive, multicultural political correctness is really rife.
Yes.
And so it might have more of a tendency to just run wild.
There's also the function of the Olympics is usually a propaganda event for whichever country hosts it, isn't it?
Yes.
And before the Olympics, they were talking about, the Olympics is going to bring in a lot of tourist money into the country. And that's complete, bollocks, basically, because the last 4 Olympics have actually reduced tourist revenues in the host country. And the same thing's happened here in Britain. Instead of people flocking to Britain in the Olympic year, it's driven the normal tourists away, because they think this is not the best year to visit Britain. It'll be crowded and chaotic. There might be terrorism and so on. And there'll be increased security with people fondling you and so on. So a lot of normal holidaymakers have stayed away, and so it's actually harmed the British economy. And so they've paid billions and billions to prepare everything, and they've also lost billions and billions in tourist revenue.
Oh, I don't doubt it. All of these, whenever they talk about these, it's going to bring in all these jobs. You know that these politicians are bullshitting. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
So you have to ask again, what's really going on? Why are they actually bending over backwards to get the Olympics?
Yeah.
And for a country like Britain, the Olympics is on paper it has a lot of value to the establishment, because it sends out a very strong multicultural message of national unity, because we have the British team and we have all these wonderful athletes of different ethnic origins working together to push us up the medals table and salute the flag and listen to God Save the Queen, and create this illusion that despite all our differences, which are basically very, very fractious and polarizing the nations, despite all this, we're actually one big happy family, and we're all slapping each other on the back.
Yeah,
and that's the desired narrative of the Olympics, and it's very important in this narrative for the kind of ethnic athletes to be showcased much more prominently.
Yeah, I agree with you, Colin. I think there is a degree of nationalism that the multiculturalists call upon, and that might sound contradictory, but it's not. In a way, I think they want to keep this, and I think their almost image of the ideal society is some totally deracinated, totally multicultural, mostly brown Western societies that are all, fanatically rooting on their soccer team or something. That kind of brings them together and makes it all work. Is a certain degree of sports nationalism.
Well, I think it's also to avoid the alienation of the ethnic minorities, because like the Afro-Caribbeans, young black men, most of them are unemployed, but I think 57% are unemployed among young black men. And so you have these groups like the Afro-Caribbeans and, of course, the Muslims, not the Sikhs so much, they're quite well adjusted, who are in danger of sort of becoming completely alienated and fallen out of society and becoming enclaves at odds with the greater society. And you have to try to keep up the pretense of involving them. And the Olympics is probably, or sport in general, is probably the cheapest way to do that, because you can have high profile non-white sportsmen creating the image of involvement in the society.
Yes.
And with a few other little palliatives, you can get by on that and keep the pretense going. And as the society progresses along its appointed path. I mean, another interesting point is that I noticed is the British Olympic team's uniforms, which are of course adorned with a version of the British flag. Mm-hmm. But the interesting point is that the red colour has been removed, and of course this is because the cross of St. George is a kind of crusading symbol that is considered by some people to be offensive to Muslims, and so they've kind of toned something like that down to sort of lessen the offensiveness to Muslims. And then if you saw the opening ceremony, it was very, very kind of pro-Afro-Caribbean. There were a lot of there was a kind of soap opera section towards the end where some young black guy finds a mulatto girl's mobile phone and returns it to her, and then they fall in love. And there was all these kind of signals sent out to the multicultural communities. Don't hate Britain, and we love you, and you're part of us, and let's all get into the Olympics together. And the appointed hero of Britain, at first, we've got people winning medals all over the place, and the vast majority of them are white, of course. And but most of the medal owners, they get their little bit of their little 50 minutes of fame. But there's certain medal owners. I mean, medal winners are all equal. Gold medal winners are all equal, but some are more equal than others. And so they boosted this heptathlete Jessica Ennis, and she became the kind of golden girl, and she's she's obviously of mixed race. And now the big hero is Mo Farah, who's basically a Somalian refugee who's black and Muslim. So now he's become the golden boy, and in a sense he's kind of earned that by winning 2 gold medals on the track in the 5,000 and 10,000 meters, but the degree to which he is sort of boosted and projected as the image is out of all proportion, because quite a few other athletes have also won 2 gold medals, like Chris Hoy in cycling and 1 or 2 others.
In America, there's the black girl, the gymnast, who sort of represents the same thing. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about this. This was yet another politically correct and incorrect, faux pas that occurred. I don't know if you heard about this, Colin, because it was kind of a American-centric scandal. But Gabby, what is her last name?
I can't remember.
Gabby.
No, it's
Gabby. Yeah, we'll call it Gabby.
I didn't watch the gymnastics. Anyway, she won the all-around competition. Good for her. And then, of course, afterwards, Bob Costas did this sanctimonious,
God, I hate Bob Costas.
Oh, he's so serious and anyway, he was like, as this is a special moment, folks. Around the country, African Americans are looking up at dear Gabby and saying, "I can do that," or some horrible thing like this. And then they cut to commercial, and the commercial they had planned, obviously well in advance, was of a monkey on the gymnastics rings.
This takes me back.
Right, it takes us back to actually something we joked about before, which is that there was the Obama monkey commercial that occurred in Japan. But anyway, so all these people called in saying how racist NBC was by more or less, implying that Gabby is a monkey, which is, a little bit absurd that these journalists are racist. But then, I always think of these things are so dialectical. Whenever you assert something, in a way you assert its opposite as well. So all of these people calling up complaining are essentially saying that Gabby looks like a monkey. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't have been offensive. So it
wouldn't even occur to them.
Yeah, I mean, right. So I don't know. I don't want to pretend like I'm some saint or something. If I were there and I saw the monkey thing, maybe some little thing in my mind would go off and say like, "Oh, well, that's kind of funny." But otherwise, I don't care. Monkeys are cute. Put them on a gem. That's kind of funny. But these liberals who get all up in arms about this, they must just be boiling underneath with all this racial fear and anxiety and an unconscious. It's almost like Freudian or something. It's like, as opposed to the Oedipal complex, they have some like racial complex where everything they look at is some racist thing. Like that, a zoo is like racist or something. It's like, so, like
a banana is racist.
Right.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you want a banana flavored ice cream? What? I thought we overcame these painful moments in our history, but clearly we haven't. So these people must be kind of borderline crazy or something. Anyway. Well, guys, we've done this for about an hour 20 minutes. I guess we could go on, but why don't we just put a bookmark in the conversation and pick it up again later, so we don't bore our listeners too much with our.
They must be sick of hearing us by now. Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for being on the show, and we'll do it again next week.
All right, look forward to it.